What are the most significant risks to your money over the next couple of years? According to a survey of World Economic Forum members, infectious diseases and livelihood crises top the charts of the most critical threats to the world and to your wealth in the next 2 years. In this video, why the economic impact of COVID-19, as bad as it was and is still likely to be in the future, isn't necessarily the one to watch in the years ahead. I'm going to share what I believe are the biggest risks to your money that you probably aren't thinking about just yet. And keep watching until the end, where I'll share a few of my tips for addressing those risks, so stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm Martin Bamford, a chartered financial planner, personal finance YouTuber and money author. On this channel I talk about personal finance, investing and happiness. I make these videos to help you become wealthier and happier. If that sounds like a great result, click on that little red subscribe button to become part of our subscriber community. It's completely free and you'll never miss an episode. More than 650 members of the World Economic Forum have shared their thoughts on the risks likely to pose a critical threat to the world during the next 2 years. These views come from a variety of sectors: business, government and academia. Some very smart people are behind these forecasts. Key risks identified by the World Economic Forum members are infectious diseases, in other words more epidemics and pandemics, and livelihood crises, along with extreme weather events and cybersecurity failure. These risks were highlighted in the latest World Economic Forum annual risks report. Let's start with infectious diseases, more epidemics and pandemics. Clearly, COVID-19 has been extraordinary, both in terms of the health impact for society, but also the broader lockdown measures we've experienced and its impact on the global economy. It's the first time in my life that I've experienced a global pandemic of this magnitude. I know historically we've had bigger and arguably more severe pandemics, certainly the HIV/AIDS pandemic, which peaked between 2005 and 2012, and that one resulted in approximately 36 million people dying worldwide. But that one didn't disrupt wider society anywhere near as much as COVID. Of course, the big one in the last century was the Spanish flu at the end of the First World War, killing between 20 and 50 million people worldwide, infecting approximately a third of the world's population at the time, and with an estimated 10 to 20% mortality rate. These global pandemics happen, and I expect we will see more of them in the future. That prediction, which seems to be supported by the views of the World Economic Forum members, is the result, in my mind anyway, of several factors. Firstly, a growing global population with greater concentrations of dense populations living in cities. Secondly, our relationship with the environment, including wildlife, a consequence of a growing global population and growing levels of industrialization. And thirdly, the ease and relatively cheap access to global travel, making it far too easy to spread a new virus across the world. Nassim Taleb wrote about black swans in his book of the same name, and there's been some debate about whether COVID-19 was truly a black swan. Economists and investment managers talk about the risk of epidemics and pandemics all of the time. These are nothing new, but we've all witnessed now the disruption of COVID-19 firsthand, so it should be less surprising when we see the next one, and the next one, and the one after that. On the plus side, COVID-19 has afforded an opportunity to witness firsthand what works and what doesn't work. Future infectious diseases are likely to be met with a much swifter and stricter lockdown approach, as we saw in China, which does for now appear to have bounced back much faster from its initial brush with the virus. The development of RNA-based vaccinations also offers some help for future pandemics, with the ability to rapidly develop, manufacture and distribute an effective vaccine. Before I go into the next set of risks, please do smash that like button. Just take a second to do that for me. It helps massively with the YouTube algorithm as we continue to create content for this channel, which is all designed to help you become wealthier and happier. The World Economic Forum Risk Report also points to the devastating impacts of COVID-19 on many livelihoods, with global lockdowns resulting in rising unemployment and business failures. It's also contributed to rising levels of inequality in society and also the threat of civil unrest. One of the sponsors of the report is Marsh, an insurance broker. Carolina Clint, risk management leader Continental Europe at Marsh, said, "The pandemic has accelerated trends that have been coming for a long time, and And this is my central thesis around COVID, that it served as a catalyst for so many of the changes that were already happening in society, albeit at a much slower pace. The working from home revolution, for example, I think has been pushed forward by at least 5 to 10 years by the emergence of COVID. Other risks identified in the report looking into the medium term include burst asset bubbles and debt crises. I know a lot of investors right now are very concerned about asset bubbles. Ultra low interest rates and monetary easing, including printing money, has pushed bond yields right down to extremely low levels, inflating the price of bonds, but also contributing to higher equity market valuations by virtue of the discounting that's used when we have low interest rates. When every investment asset class is expensive, where do you allocate your money? It's a tough question and one with no easy answers. And on debt, yes, clearly that's a huge issue too. We've seen in the past week the ugly head of the European sovereign debt crisis rear up again after Europe kicked the can down the road on the last few occasions. The entire world has now got such massive debt that there is no easy solution in terms of addressing those debt levels. Something big will be needed to restructure those debts and bring the global economy back in the future to some form of normality. Longer term, World Economic Forum members were concerned about the use of weapons of mass destruction and of state collapses. Sadia Zahidi, Managing Director at the World Economic Forum, said, as governments, businesses and societies begin to emerge from the pandemic, they must now urgently shape new economic and social systems that improve our collective resilience and capacity to respond to shocks while reducing inequality, improving health and protecting the planet. Resilience, that to me is the key word in all of this as we consider the variety of risks identified in the report. Resilience. That resilience can only be led by governments and businesses, but ultimately it's something that we all need to develop at an individual level. I've spoken before on this channel about the concept of becoming finvincible. That means financially invincible. I'll link up here to my video explaining my Finvincible principles. There's a lot more to come on this channel, as becoming Finvincible in light of these risks and others should be a priority for all of us. Despite these risks to the world and to our wealth, despite what I guess can feel like a rather negative outlook because we're just talking about risks, there is some optimism out there too. Another report sponsor was Zurich Insurance, and their chief risk officer, Peter Geiger, spoke about his optimism for rebuilding the world economy post-pandemic. He said, the history of the economy suggests that every major structural change has led to higher employment. That expectation of higher employment as the world recovers from COVID isn't necessarily going to be the traditional employment we've been used to in the past. Keep in mind that the shape and the nature of employment continues to change, driven by emerging technologies including advanced robotics and artificial intelligence. What served individuals and the economy in the past will no doubt not be the same as what serves it well in the future. The risks report from the World Economic Forum comes ahead of a virtual Davos agenda event next week. Clearly, business and political leaders can't meet face-to-face in Switzerland this month as they would do usually at Davos, but the conversation continues using remote technology. They do plan on a physical meeting in May, assuming that's possible, which is scheduled to take place in Singapore. Now that you're familiar with the risks identified in this report, what can you actually do about them? A couple of suggestions from me. Firstly, please think back to the early weeks and months of the pandemic. In fact, think about your entire pandemic experience. What would you do differently if you experienced this all over again? I know for a growing number of people, the pandemic has prompted them to reconsider their living arrangements, with a bit of an exodus taking place from city to country, and the desire for more space, both indoors and outdoors. A good question to consider is, are you living in the right place to address these future risks? Secondly, how does your financial resilience look right now? It's often said that the best time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. I'm not suggesting for a second that the sun is shining in an economic sense right now, but if you're in that fortunate position, that fortunate segment of society that hasn't suffered too much in financial terms throughout the pandemic, this could be an opportune moment to fix your metaphorical roof. repaying debt, bolstering cash reserves, investing for the future, as well as diversifying your investments and your sources of income. These are all sensible steps to think about right now. Thirdly, please do turn your attention to your health and well-being. We know during this pandemic just how variable the experience has been from a health perspective, with those already in poor health or overweight, for example, far more likely to become seriously ill from the virus, far more likely to need hospital treatment, sadly far more likely to die. As well as making our finances more resilient, we can make ourselves more resilient to some of these risks by working on our health and fitness, by becoming more robust in a physical and a mental well-being sense to overcome future challenges. Do you agree with the risks identified by the members of the World Economic Forum? What action will you be taking in light of these emerging challenges? Thank you for watching this video. Until next time, I'm Martin Bamford, and remember, when it comes to your money, the more you know, the faster it can grow.